And good evening, Bird brothers and sisters. What is up, everybody? Lindy Endzone back in the building for the touchdown, taking the lead for the Philadelphia Eagles, one video at a time. And at some point, I'll have to drop buckets for the Dallas Mavericks again. I am almost completely out of touch, unfortunately, with all the external stuff going on for myself, and whether it's a extra higher priority at my job or taking care of the house and getting used to this sort of thing. You already know the deal. But with the third episode has finally aired, as I have been excited all week about the fact that Touchdown Talk is still going on the channel, and with this being the third episode of the week, episode 6, keeping the series alive this evening. It's been a minute, but Philly Insider Podcast, native Hunter Doyle returns to talk some birds once more. Good to have you on the channel once again, Hunter. It's been quite a long time, and I think from the last time, it was I don't exactly remember how long ago it was, but here we are, and we got we got a lot of stuff to talk about once more. But it's good to have you on the channel once again.
Hey, Lindy, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I mean, I always love talking birds. We just had you on my call-in very briefly, and we said we were going to do this, and we set it up within like a week. So I'm really glad that happened, because last year I was just flying all over the place. But and look, I mean, all my guys really enjoyed having you on the call-in. So I was like, I definitely got to set up a live with Lindy. You got to be on with some of my podcast guys sometime soon too. But it's always a pleasure, my guy, and I'm excited to talk some birds. I think since the last time we talked, your Braves did win a World Series, so congratulations on that. That must have been awesome. And glad to be on, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I've to the rest of Philly Insider, I mean, of course, they're all they're all great gentlemen in their own right, knowledgeable in their respects to the different Philadelphia sports teams, and unfortunately, my baseball team is not a part of that.
It's okay. We all knew what was coming with the Phillies, so we weren't too upset about it. But
Yeah, well, but one thing, and I've said this a couple of times before, but one thing that I felt that the Braves shared in terms of Philadelphia lore was just the drive to fight through the adversity that they went through, the same way that we did when we won the Super Bowl, whether it was injuries or people counting them out, especially after the All-Star break, being under 500, and then they bring it together with a bunch of guys at the trade deadline, or claiming others off of minor league teams, and calling them up to the active roster just to be key core components in that playoff run to take down the Dodgers and get revenge on them, and to silence a hated team in the Houston Astros around the MLB.
Yes.
So it was a Cinderella story to me at the end of it, to just win, especially to win in Houston and make a lot of those Astro fans cry. It was It was a beautiful sight. It was a beautiful sight.
That's something every baseball fan can come together on, is watching Astros fans and Astros Nation alike just have to collectively suffer is something we can all take a little bit of joy in.
Just like us with the Dallas Cowboys.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's perfect. But speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, and with the Philadelphia Eagles being in the NFC East, unfortunately, with that bitter rival that they are, we got some we got some explaining to do with our opinions. We got some explaining to do with some news that has been developing today outside of the press conference that Sirianni and Howie Roseman had this week. We're still awaiting to hear from Jeffrey Lurie and his insight on how the 2021 season unfolded. I can only imagine how that one is going to go. But and for a quick minute here, I want to give some shout outs to the chat. Obviously, there's multiple content creators in here as well. BPS Big Play Slay showing up as usual through his dedication. Touchdown Talk ×3. You already know Nightings. He was a part of the second episode this week, and that aired yesterday. So be sure to check that one out if you haven't already. Me and Nightings had a great show. Him having his first collab with me on the channel here, that was great. Birdman 951, man of the hour, of course. I did have to show off the sticker. He already knows, appreciates that one. So there we go, and that goes for any other content creator. Like I was telling you backstage, love to have anyone else. Not necessarily advertised, but supported on the display table. But yeah, shout out to everybody in the chat so far, and so I'm not continuing to blabber on here with with stuff on the side. Man, we got some birds to talk about, and the last conversation that we really had came in that call-in for about a few minutes, and it was the upcoming anticipation on this playoff game that we deservedly got beaten as bad as we did by a more veteran team, a more established team, a more been there, done that type of team, whether it's the players or the coaching staff. As a whole, the Buccaneers were the better football team, and like I said, deservedly so. We got ourselves beat 31-15. It wasn't that close. The final score did not tell the entire story. We already know that, and it hurts to say deservingly so, because even through all of that, it was a shame to me that the Eagles did not put up a better fight than we thought they were going to. So, being that I know you are one that does dedicate himself to doing all 22 film reviews, and I don't know if you necessarily got into the Tampa Bay game or anything as of recently, but going off of game tape and assessing Jalen Hurts' performance and the rest of the team, I got to know from your mind and your intellect what your biggest takeaways were from the loss, and where does that set us up in the offseason going forward?
Yeah, so I didn't get to watch a ton of the tape just because, I'll be honest, the last game of the season for the Eagles, like whenever they get eliminated, I just don't have the will within me to go watch the game over again. Like during the season when they're getting, when they were 2-5, I was like, I got to see the tape to see who I can blame for this loss, But at the end of the season, it's just kind of heartbreak. Even though, again, like you said, like Tampa Bay was the better team. I believe during the week that there were going to be opportunities to win that game. And there were. I mean, Derek Barnett's offsides on the first drive. I mean, that killed that because we would have gotten a third down stop there. Dallas Goedert. I mean, I love Dallas Goedert, but that drop that he had came in a very timely moment. So those two mistakes are kind of keep us away from, if Dallas Goedert catches that, he has a bunch of open field, maybe we score on that drive. Maybe it's like 10-7 instead of 17-0. Yeah. So I think that's something where it's like the little things matter, and it just spirals out of control. And like Goddard, I can't even give that excuse to, because it's like, you've been around for a little bit now, man. You gotta start, like, it's the thing with him is like he's great, but he'll have that one drop a game or one or two that come in the worst situations where he just has open field. And I think he just gets a little too excited and starts running without the ball. So that's got to get cleaned up. In terms of like Jalen, I know the jury's out on Jalen right now. Everyone is going every which way. I've been neutral on Jalen since he got here. I'm going to continue to be neutral on him until I feel I have. I think I cut out, but I think I'm going to be neutral on Jalen. I'm going to be neutral on Jalen until I get enough of a sample size to where I feel I can really evaluate him. I thought it was a mix of him trying to do a little bit too much and also the coaching staff putting him in a bad position the majority of the time. I mean, the Buccaneers brought 8, 9, maybe not 9 guys, but 8 guys into the box consistently, and they didn't adjust. And a lot of times he just had to run around and try to make something happen. So I could see, why he struggled there. And I'm not taking blame away from Jalen. Look, there was certainly a lack of execution on his part at times too. There was times where he didn't see things. The Devontae one where he threw that interception, it's just like, you got to know when, even if you see it, it's like, all right, now it's too late. I'm not going to be able to have a play on this. And, whether or not Devontae should have come back to the ball and made a play on it, throw probably shouldn't have been made either way. So there was stuff that, again, it's on the coaching staff. It's on Jalen. And, yeah, I mean, I thought they also just didn't really do a good job of getting Devontae integrated into the game plan. I mean, you saw – I know the fourth quarter they were kind of pinned back a little bit, but you saw what he did after the catch. I mean, the Buccaneers were known for having some problems with missed tackles in the open field. And Devontae had those 2 or 3 catches he had. He was able to just spin away from traffic or, make some work after the catch. And, yeah, I just didn't think they integrated him enough. And that was a big problem. So that was my big thing on offense.
I don't know how many more examples Devontae needs to give to this coaching staff and to show how dynamic of a playmaker he is with the ball in his hands when Jalen actually throws it to him.
That too.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. And
right.
And we've heard for the longest now that there's a theory behind the idea that Jalen he limits the scale of the field that he that he throws to based on his comfortability, based on his based on his pocket presence, and a lot of other things. And he just tends to be too selective in where he wants to go with the football. Like there's a lot of times where he doesn't throw it to the left side enough, and we have to think, and well, why don't we line up Devontae Smith on his strong side and and try and make other and try and hope that the other receivers can beat their defenders. And it was confusing almost the entire year that they couldn't make that adjustment, especially when your quarterback needs it the most. I don't get it. I really don't.
Sorry, I missed the last part there.
No, I just didn't understand why they couldn't, integrate more of a scheme to, have Devontae comfortably fit on the field where Jalen's used to throwing to specific sides.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Sirianni was thinking in that regard, or maybe it could have been. Maybe he was still trying to challenge Hurts to start getting used to throwing to his weak side. And that is good coaching, but still I have to imagine that there's a fine line between, that good coaching aspect and, just doing something temporarily to get your quarterback in a rhythm. And we had a hard time looking for that between Sirianni as a play caller and Hurts as the quarterback.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, the first thing I was going to say in response to what you said was the 4th and 10 where they threw to Reagor. One, I mean, look, I don't know what the read was or what the progression was or anything. Obviously, Hurts got a coverage that he wanted to go to that. It looked like a comeback or a curl route, whatever it was, come back to the ball a little bit, but get past the sticks. Now, I didn't go to the film and see what Devontae was running on that play, but it's like, why are you going to your wide receiver 3, and that's putting it nicely, a wide receiver 3, on 4th and 10? Yeah. And, I mean, it takes me back to 2020, Lindy, where we were playing the Giants the second time in MetLife, and Carson went to Reagor on a 4th and 10, and it was like, one, it was just the play call wasn't good because everyone was running, like, mirrored routes, I think. 2, it just wasn't a great throw. And 3, Reagor didn't turn back the ball the right way. That wasn't the exact same scenario this time, but I just didn't understand the decision-making there. Your backs are against the wall. You're going for it on 4th and 10. Get a little creative. I mean, I know they were playing a lot of like press man and all that stuff, and they were playing a lot of man-to-man coverage, but still, I mean, if they're going to go to man-to-man, I mean, my first thought isn't let's try to get Jalen Reagor on a comeback or a curl. My first thought is, all right, let's get something with Devontae going over the middle to Jalen's right side, right? So, and obviously you're not going to do that every time. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more going on in the coach's room in terms of what tendencies they see and all that stuff. But still, I mean, even perspective, I thought Devontae's route tree was like, I didn't think they really expanded it. And in my opinion, I think he can run anything you ask him to. I mean, if you ask him to run a route, he's going to learn it and run it in a game. And he's going to get open on it and know how to get open versus whatever coverage it is. Maybe I'm a little too high on him, but I think he's that good of a route runner. And it felt like the whole year it was just curl route, dig route, drag route, maybe a post occasionally mixed in, maybe a comeback or like an out. It was nice. I mean, he went to work and got his catches on all of them. But I don't know. I definitely agree with you. I felt like there was more ways and more creative ways that could have integrated him. Like there was a snap in the Jets game where they had him come out of the backfield and then run it out. And it's just like, well, if you're in the backfield, you're not going to get press. And obviously Devontae, I think, can get off press pretty well. But, you get a free release. It's a lot easier to go on that out route and just speed out to the sideline. And he got open on it. So it's like little things like that. They did that with Cooper Kupp in LA. So I agree with you fully. And I thought that when they did send Devontae on post routes, I thought Jalen wasn't willing to take the shot some of the times. Like there was just sometimes where he was open downfield, and I think Jalen didn't trust what he was seeing, which is obviously easier said than done for a young quarterback. I mean, when you're back there in the pocket, you can't see the all 22 where they have a step on the guy, right? You have to trust your wideout. But I also think, there were times where he did take his shots downfield. Timing was a little bit off. Accuracy was a little bit off. And that's something, young quarterback's going to work on that. That's something I think I'm looking to see Jalen improve next year is definitely the deep ball. But other than that, I mean, I thought there was much more they could have done even with Jalen not hitting on the deep ball 100% of the time. So, yeah, that was a big issue I had with the play calling.
And it's funny that you brought up a couple of those fourth down plays, even spanning to Carson's last year. And I remember one play call in this game where it was man coverage, and Sirianni is still having his guys in a 3 vertical set, and these guys are having a hard time trying to get off of the line of scrimmage,
right?
Surprisingly, out of all of them, Reagor's still hand fighting on the left side with Jamel Dean, and he finally gets free off a scramble drill when Jamel's sitting there tripping on himself, and he still can't be in the right place at the right time to get the football because Hurts is already rolling to his left while he has at least 2 spies on him, so he can't get the first down that way and try it. And again he goes to Reagor. I mean, I don't. It's so confusing at times, and I have to, and then you bring up Devontae Smith and I don't necessarily think you're too high on him, just because of the amount of examples that he has given us where he was put in a position to get to make a quality play and get, yards after catch, whatever it may be. I mean, off the top of my head, one of the more creative games that I watched with Devontae Smith, I mean, that Denver game was phenomenal. Whether they were sending him out on a quick screen, like, I barely even seen Devontae Smith on a quick screen like they would do it like a tight end screen, because Goddard's just a freight train when he gets up to speed and accelerates that way. That's why they do.
Oh my gosh!
But just the quick, slender twitchiness that Devontae possesses on the same kind of play, that's what makes him hard to bring down, because he knows where to go with the football in his hands, much like Miles Sanders does when he explodes for one of his explosive plays and takes the right cuts. Well, when he does, but he does it often. He does it often enough to be a valuable asset in that running back room. But I think that's where the comparisons end, because they're two totally different players.
Right.
But and you look at this receiver core, and I'm still hell bent over the fact that at this press conference, Sirianni talking about his guys and him being comfortable with this receiver core. For one, I'm like, yeah, dude, you're losing me here. And that's where it starts. It starts there where he actually likes the receiver core. The second part where he's losing me even more is the fact that he has Jalen Rager as wide receiver 3 and Quez is receiver 2. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And then he goes on to explain that he likes the dynamic between Smith and Quez Watkins, where Quez is more of that. He's more of that spontaneous deep ball guy, and Devontae's more of your number one receiver that is reliable in a lot of different facets. Where Quez is more of that. He's more of that specialty type that. And I don't want to say Deshaun Jackson, but there's pretty similar areas there between the two of them. And the more I thought about it yesterday, the more I'm like, well, you know what? There is a comparison there, because earlier in their careers, Deshaun Jackson was not the greatest route runner, but if you stuttered at any point in time as a defender, you're getting burned to a crisp by him. And Quez Watkins has that threat. And then, putting Rager down to number 3 is just, an embarrassment on his part. And I love the fact that Sirianni was pretty blunt about it and saying, between him and Howie, they both said that, we expected a lot more out of Rager this year. And, they're going to have to go through further evaluations and see, where the roster's at from that, from that positional perspective, and what how that room is going to be as far as depth. And then the other thing I noticed was they dropped a list of 11 players who got a reserve futures deal, and well, wouldn't you know it, John Hightower has yet to get one. But Deon Cain, who we claimed off of waivers from the Colts, who suffered an ACL injury, apparently he's been good enough to earn one. And then, that former 5th-round pick that we had, who was supposed to be in competition with Quez Watkins, it's like, what happened? And it's a shame, too, because at one point Jason Avant has talked about that he has superb talent when it comes to route running, where he felt that John was the best route runner on this football team before Devontae Smith arrived. And just to neglect your love for the game, through that speculation as how Avant thought about it. It's a shame.
The love for the game thing, it's weird because I heard a lot of content creators talk about that, but I never found anything when I looked it up. Do you know where that came from?
Really? Well, that's what I do know that's one thing that Jason Avant has been accurate with.
Jason Avant said that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and this ties back to when he was the assistant receivers coach to Aaron Moorhead back in 2020. Like he was, he was there with these guys to study them on a daily basis, and that's how Jason honestly felt, when he was at NovaCare working with these players, and he thinks that's the biggest thing that's holding Hightower back right now is just, he's just not all there, or doesn't care enough to want to be a better football player. And, it seems to be holding true right now, because you would think with a kid of his talent that he would be one to get a reserve futures deal, and he has yet to be signed on when guys just claimed off of waivers are beating them out. And this is a kid who beat out Travis Fulgham and they just gave up. They gave up on Travis. Apparently Travis was not good enough, and John ended up beating him out. This is the same John Hightower who we have protected multiple times throughout the year, but he still never got elevated to the active roster. And man, I mean, these some of these picks, man, are just not looking good for Howie as of late, especially in the receiving core.
Yeah, I mean, with John, every time I went back and watched him last year, I was like, he is very twitchy, very, very, very twitchy, especially on like those double moves on deep balls where he'd fake to the corner and then run a post. Like, oh my gosh! And I mean, obviously sometimes the route was run right into coverage, and the idea was to just take guys, take defenders away deep. But I mean, there was a lot of times where he just ran it beautifully, and obviously he had his issues with drops. But I mean, I also thought at the same time, if you involved him a little bit more in the short and intermediate game, you wouldn't see as many drops show up. We did see the one on like the first target he got in his career, I think, which was week 1. He was like over the middle and he was about to get popped. But I mean, there's ways you can scheme him open though. I mean, the kid's got speed, and I don't think he'd be dropping. I don't think he'd be dropping passes left and right. I think a lot of it's just like focus drops and just getting a little, jitters at times. And I mean, to Quez Watkins' credit, that's a big thing. The big thing is the opposite with him that got him to where he is now is, he really, really wants to be out there, wants to work at it, because like that was what they were crediting him for, is like after his first season. I think Avant said like after his first season, he really realized like, all right, this is what it takes to be in the NFL and this is what it takes to work, and I'm going to go out there and do it. So if that is the case with Hightower, it is a shame, like you said, because I really like I said, I would probably agree with Jason when I went out and watched a lot of rewatched a lot of the games. It looked like Hightower was getting separation at the top of his routes and was running some nice routes. So, and it's a shame because I saw Rager do that a lot last year too. But this year, I mean, the dude, people figure out you can press Rager at the line and he's nothing at that point. So, yeah,
or easily get under his skin.
Yeah, that too. Both the opposing team and the fans as well. So, yeah, it's definitely the picture of the receiving core are not looking great, and that's worrisome if you take one this year too, because I feel like there's guys I got my eye on, there's guys the Eagles fan base have got their eyes on for maybe one of the first round picks, maybe a day 2 pick, guys who could come in here and be like a sufficient wide receiver 2 or 3, maybe a 1 if you take a high pick on one of them. But like you said, with how Howie's picked wide receivers, I mean, that's definitely a concern. I'll give him Hightower because I do think the talent's there. I do think it's a lot of off the field stuff. I can't blame Howie for that. I mean, it's tough to gauge these guys' personality in just a pre-draft interview, or maybe you don't even have one with them. But credit to him for getting Quez. It feels like he always hits on the later day picks, but whenever we need a first round receiver, we know outside of Devontae how that goes. And honestly, I credit Devontae more to where we were in the draft rather than Howie being some genius on that pick. But at the same time, I do think the coaching staff right now has a little more say and influence on the draft picks than the last one did. Not that the last one couldn't, but I think Doug and his staff kind of stayed away from that stuff from what I heard. So I mean, you saw how Jonathan Gannon reacted when we picked Milt Williams. I mean, that man was fired up. Tom Donahoe wasn't, but Jonathan Gannon was. So, yeah, I mean, I think that the wide receiver, we definitely got to find someone this offseason, because I know they'll probably keep Rager around just because it's going to cost a bag to cut him. I think it's going to cost around like $7 million is the dead cap we would have to surrender, which, I mean, if Brandon Brooks retires or he's not here, that's like $25 million added. So that helps, but you don't want to get docked $7 more million down. I mean, you want to have as much as possible. So I don't see them cutting him unless things really get out of hand. But I think you got to try to move him. Yeah, trade bait for sure. Look, I mean, I know people will laugh at that, but you're going to get something for him. I mean, you might not get something enticing, but he's going to have some value. I don't think they will trade him because I don't think they want to give up on him after 2 years. And some guys do put it together after year 3, but I just think with his relationship with the fans, my friend said it best. He said, we hate him. He hates us. It's not really good I don't think he's in a good mental state right now. I mean, his friend who died before the season started, that seemed to hit him pretty hard, and he wasn't ready for training camp and all that. So that's something, he's definitely kind of gotta come to terms with, and I don't have any problem with him doing that because that's something I respect his personal life and his privacy. But at the same time, it just doesn't seem like outside of that, it just doesn't seem like it's working out. And I think changes scenery would do him well. So I'd like to see him get moved. But my point being, you look to the draft that there's a best player available at some point that's really talented. Maybe you get a guy like that. But also, I mean, there's obviously going to be some veterans on the market that, if you can get them for a good deal that you like, you maybe add one of them too. So it's definitely something I think we got to look to address this offseason.
Yeah, and anything is possible at this point. Between the free agency pool and or the draft class, depending on what we do with these three first round picks, and it's already making the Howie Roseman haters sweating right now. That what the hell is this man going to do? Is he going to give them all away for a top tier quarterback and go after a Deshaun Watson or a Russell Wilson? Like, is that even on the table? Or try and move up in the draft, knowing that the Houston Texans may be shopping their third overall pick and stuff like that.
And the Jets, I think, are shopping one of their picks too because they have two top 10s, I believe.
I think I don't know about you, but me, when it comes to the quarterback position, I think we have bigger fish to fry right now.
Yeah.
In all honesty, we have bigger fish to fry. And I don't care. I don't care who you put behind that offensive line at quarterback, but we don't have the talent to support anyone else better than Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. We just don't have the talent to do it. And this was one of those years where, it was beneficial to analyze some of those guys, and especially a lot of rookies in this past draft class played for this football team. I think every single rookie at one point played. So you have to credit Howie for that. You have to credit Howie for that because these guys are good enough to get on the field and contribute in any way they possibly can. Even if it's at the lower tier of special teams, they're still making contributions. Patrick Johnson, Teron Jackson, Jacoby Stevens was out there at one point. Milton Williams was one of the favorites of some of the guys on defense when they were having their press conferences. I think it was Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave who pointed out Milton Williams as one of their favorite guys to watch because of the improvement that he continued to make on a weekly basis, and he's just hungry to go after it. And boy, did Jonathan Gannon nail that one. That's one of the only things, with Howie, that's one of the only things that he really nailed outside of how the defense played, unfortunately. But yeah, those are two things. Those are two things that we can transition to for the moment. I need to get your word on. But before we get into that, we're already over the halfway mark. Projected halfway mark through this presentation of Touchdown Talk episode 6, and thank you for the consistent viewership as always. Like I've been saying the last couple of episodes here, it doesn't seem to matter to me anymore whether it's 220 or 200. I'm still enjoying what I'm doing at the end of the day, and that's all I can really ask for at this point, as well as the support of the rest of the content creator community of the team that we all bleed green for. So appreciate everybody that has helped in terms of support. And don't forget, man. Give Hunter a quick click on his channel for that podcast. A lot of the dedication that he puts into it on the side with the rest of the PIP crew to give you guys the latest in their intel, in their findings, in their knowledge of all the Philadelphia sports teams going 4 for 4. And just one quick click gives you, another batch of content, and that
Sir.
subscription button is free. So don't
Thank
be
you.
afraid to do that as well. All right, man. Well, let's try and get into the rest of this here. Man, this quarterback situation here. We're talking about a kid who's only 23 years old, for one. We're also talking about a kid who went through at least 5 to 6 head coaching changes, and the majority of them were also play callers spanning from the collegiate level to the NFL level, and whatever, however you want to take it, however you want to credit it, that we're including the collegiate level here. I know it doesn't matter as much when it comes to the NFL, but we complained the same. We complained about the same things with, even when Carson was here, that that the play calling was inconsistent, and it changed too much from time to time, and we gotta simplify things, and what Doug was doing a lot wasn't working. So for Jalen to go through multiple systems now, and to finally try and build some um, camaraderie with the group, with that coaching staff that's on this that's on this football team right now. And that's one thing that hurts, even that he even addressed in his press conference, that he's excited about, and it only benefits him going forward. Between the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator,
Right.
even the passing game coordinator, Jeff Stoutland still being here for the run game, because that helps the quarterback out, and then you have your primary play caller and Nick Sirianni. You have to imagine at some point that this is only going to help Jalen Hurts continue to grow as a quarterback, where we almost certainly know that the majority of his improvements come from being an actual, quarterback as a passer. Oh, those same criticisms that Lamar Jackson has got for the last few years. Oh, now we're
Right.
starting to apply it on Jalen Hurts. Oh, ho hum, right? you know, it gets irritating to some points, and I know, and I understand you're neutral with Hurts as a quarterback, because this pick in last year's, well, technically last year's, or no,
Right.
2020's draft class,
Yeah. Yeah.
that pick threw everybody off, and
Yeah.
even so, for him to come in for X amount of games after all that constant implosion that was happening, and to really put some good performances together, and I, I guess predictably he's been up and down, and for a young quarterback going in that transition from a rookie backup to then a first year starter in year 2, those things are to be expected. But as we know, with this fan base, it's all or nothing. It has to be win now every
Right.
year, not to the level of the Dallas Cowboys, where they're delusional. To where they're delusional, and they have a Super Bowl roster every single year, and
Right.
we're gonna win a Super Bowl, right? We're going to the Super Bowl. Yeah, no, stop it. 27 years, cut it out. but I'm just I'm trying to I'm trying to bring it together here, and
Mhm.
have people understand that these things do take time. They take time for development. They take time from a perspective with meshing with people, people on the roster, people on the coaching staff, getting those chemistries up to speed with one another. But I mean, and then for Sirianni and Howie Roseman to bless Hurts as the starter going forward in 2022 next year. I guess this will be a two-part kind of question. The first one involves what the first one involves like, do you really, buy into Sirianni and Howie talking about that Hurts is their guy going into 2022, especially with what we went through last year? And two, is Hurts too is he too far behind in terms of development where you don't feel that he has a long tenure future as the Eagles quarterback, even spanning past 2022?
Yeah, two very, very good questions. And I'll be interested to hear your thoughts after I go too. First off, with Sirianni and Howie, that was the question, right? Sirianni and Howie, like committing to him and my belief in what they're saying. So as far as that goes, I do think he is like they're going into the offseason and next season with the mindset that he's going to be the quarterback. But I will say, I mean, obviously, I think if the Seahawks or the Packers come calling, like I believe both Russell and Aaron have options to become free agents, but they're probably going to try to keep him around so they can trade him. Or I don't know how that's all going to work out, but I think they will have the option to trade him. So obviously, if Seattle or Green Bay comes calling, I don't think they're hanging up the phone. I think they are picking up the phone. They're definitely listening to what those teams are going to offer, and they're going to weigh how much they'd have to pay versus, whether it would be worth it or whether they want to keep Jalen and assess other needs on the roster and keep some of their draft capital. So that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think there is truth to it to an extent, but I also think obviously they're going to be listening to offers.
I think it's been an obvious. Yeah, I think it's been an obvious given every year that some people kind of blow it out of proportion when it's talked about that. Oh, how he's going after this guy, how he's going after that guy. Well, no, he's just making a phone call and trying to get some intel on the situation. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be executed 5 minutes after the first conversation. No, I mean that's what a GM does. He finds out what his options are, and out of curiosity, he's going to make some phone calls here and there. And if it's enticing enough to him, then maybe he's going to pursue some type of deal with whatever organization it may be.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the thing that I think, like you said, people blow it out of proportion a little bit because, look, GMs are always looking to upgrade anywhere they can. Like, Howie was probably on the phone about Jalen Ramsey a couple years ago before he got shipped off to LA. Did that mean that anything really got close to a deal? Probably not. I mean, I don't know the inside information on it, but I'm sure there's been plenty of superstars we've looked into and haven't got really close to even thinking about a deal. But you got to check in. But as soon as someone hears that Howie called about him, it's like, all right, the Eagles might get him. So, but. Yeah, and obviously Watson kind of gets included in that list depending on how the legal stuff transpires. I haven't even been keeping up with that. So if the legal stuff isn't cleared, I don't know if that's something you really want to take a chance on there. I probably would rather keep Jalen, especially I think the thing with weighing, how much it would cost to get all three of those quarterbacks, those guys are like generational talents. But if they're asking for like a way overpay from us, I mean, you're not paying Jalen that much money. So at that point, I mean, you keep Jalen around for a year 3, maybe a year 4, and you go from there. And as far as my personal belief in Jalen and his, like, if he's behind on development, I think Jalen was kind of in a unique situation in college to where the coaching staffs, I don't want to say they limited what he did, but it was definitely simplified because I think they wanted to utilize his legs. And also I don't know if they thought he could process at a high enough level. But also, I mean, college offenses, I mean, today, it's a lot of similar stuff. So I think when he got in the NFL, there was some things he had to learn in terms of processing. But I think you can see from like the time he was at Alabama and OU to the time he's at now, there's throws that he can make now that he really didn't make in college a ton.
And it's weird because he seems to have this on and off button to him where one game you can pick out where he's completely zoned in, he's reading defenses correctly, and he's already premeditating like okay, I'm going to go with the football here because I know that I can win this matchup with this receiver, and
Right.
the defense is in my favor to make this play. And then there's other games where he just gets completely overwhelmed or in his head too much, and those are the games where I think the play callers start to panic, and in the midst of maybe calming him down, and it kind of goes in a downward spiral from there, because then they can't make the necessary adjustments to help their quarterback who's struggling.
No, absolutely. And I think, you look at the specific games you're talking about. I mean, the first Dallas game, that definitely happened when we fell behind a little bit. The game in MetLife against the Giants this year where we lost 13-7. I mean, obviously, Reagor dropping those couple passes, Reagor will get the bulk of the blame from, I think, like I said, Reagor will get the bulk of the blame, but Hurts, didn't have a great game that day. And that definitely took us a little bit of a step back that day. And then
I know people want to say, I hate the timing of seeming to cut people off, because but that's the way that's the way the virtual scene works. But I know people seem to think that the playoff game was the worst game of Hurts' career. I'm at a complete loss, because I still feel that Giants game where we lost 13-7 was the worst game of Hurts' career to date, because that was a team that you could that was a team where there was no excuse to lose to that Giants squad for the issues that they were going through at that point in time. And well, this was more, the playoff game was more of a game where the Eagles as a whole, between the players and the coaching staff, they just seemed to be in a position where they didn't do their homework. They went to school the next day, and they got a 0, and the teacher's asking them, well, you didn't get your homework done, and the Eagles are, and they tell the teacher no. Well, why? And well, we kind of got confused, or we got afraid to answer these kind of questions, and we contemplated cheating, but we knew it was still wrong at the end of the day. That's how I felt what happened with the playoff game, more so that there was no excuse to lose to the Giants, and it didn't help that your quarterback was absolutely abysmal. So, yeah, I still feel that Giants game was the worst game that Hurts has played to this point, based on the circumstance. But yeah, with us talking about his development here, and and I've harped on it a couple of times now, that the fact that he's only 23 years old, and we're looking at quarterbacks right now where Deshaun Watson is entering his late 20s, but he's still technically in the prime of his career. But there's a lot of legal issues behind him. Russell Wilson is approaching his mid-30s, and the play style of quarterback that he is, we don't necessarily know how much elusiveness that he's going to have left, with being able to do the things that Hurts can do now to an extent, with his escapability and that dynamic of stretching plays outside of the pocket. We don't know how much of that Russell Wilson's going to have left. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, who's a complete anomaly, and I don't know that he's going to want to come to an organization where he thinks is a lesser tier than the Green Bay Packers. So I think all three of those options are out right now.
I agree.
And not to mention, I love Jason Avant. I do. Like, as a player, as a fan of this football team. But in the last episode and I understand where he's coming from to an extent. But the criticism of where Hurts is as a quarterback right now, it's like, I don't know, and it confuses me, because do we already forget to this point how, like, he said that Hurts's 2021 season was, it was really nothing to mention. Like there was nothing special about it. Well, if memory serves me correct, Carson Wentz as a rookie in 2016, his season was nothing to talk about either. And statistically, in some areas, Carson was worse. Now, granted, the personnels were completely different, but if you ask me, offensively, it was almost pretty much the same to me. I mean, who are you going to say that Hurts' top targets were this year? Dallas Goedert and DeVonta Smith. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean that's fair. Minus the running game. Well, who were Carson's top targets in 2016? It was Jordan Matthews when he was still relevant, who was a pretty damn good receiver at that point in
Yeah.
time that almost broke 1,000 yards. And Zach Ertz was in the prime of his career. So that balances out pretty well. And Carson still played at times statistically worse than Hurts did, and Hurts is younger at this point in time. Even in their well, even in Carson's rookie year, because he was a full-time first year starter, and this was Hurts's first full year starting. So I think the comparison and contrast there is fair enough to analyze. But yeah, I mean, you know, I think because of where we are right now in terms of wanting to get back to the Super Bowl a lot, and wanting to get back to the Super Bowl, because at that point in time when Carson was a rookie, those were still very hungry aspirations for this franchise. And then after the fact that we got it, now it's elevated even higher because we want another one.
Yeah.
And it just seems that we're trying to hit the fast forward button too soon with Hurts after only seeing a first full year of him playing with a brand new head coach who is a new play caller. Like almost the entire offensive coaching staff from that regard is new defensive coordinator, and like through all the changes that we have gone through in 2020, and to just to combine everything as a whole, I don't understand why we thought we were going to expect more in terms of development. And that's what
Yeah.
confuses me the most when I'm seeing the amount of people that are kind of hitting the panic button here and being like, "Well, Jalen's not that guy. Jalen's not that guy. Let's move on right now. Oh, this team's a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. No, we're not. Stop it. No, absolutely not.
I don't
Russell
think
Wilson,
Super
Deshaun
Bowl.
Watson, Aaron Rodgers, none of those quarterbacks are fixing our situation right now.
Yeah, I don't think a Super Bowl team is going to have Jalen Rager as the
No.
wide receiver 3.
No, especially with how this defense looks.
Oh yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So, and well, there goes my rant all over again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're good.
I gotta be myself with it.
Yeah.
Like that's my thought process, and I feel it's legitimate enough to take seriously. But
Yeah.
speaking of defense, since the time is continuing to be condensed as we're hitting almost 55 minutes, I did want to get your take on the situation with Jonathan Gannon and having multiple head coaching interviews already. I mean, he's interviewed for the Texans, he's interviewed for the Bears, he's interviewed for the Vikings, but none of those three teams have given him a second interview. And a lot of times when you see multiple interviews, that means the intrigue in said candidate is starting to spark up. Like that team is in more of a pursuit than they were the first time with the initial interview. And then we're hearing talk about that, oh, well, Gannon is one of the front runners for the Texans job. We have expressed as fans how important it is to try to establish continuity for more than 1 year, whether it's the head coach, the wide receivers coach, defensive coordinator, tight ends coach, whoever it may be. We've went through it multiple years, and some of them were positive, some of them were negative. A la positive, Press Taylor. I had to throw it out there. I'm sorry.
That's
I
a
had
name
to
I
throw it
forgot
out
about.
there.
Love him as a person. I just didn't. There were issues as a coach for sure, from what we heard. So
Too much buddy, yeah, as we know, and well, they're together. They're together again in
back
harmony.
together
But
and the same result.
yeah,
So
yep, yeah, even more embarrassingly too.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, Jonathan Gannon was not. He was not a favorite by any stretch of the imagination in this
yeah,
fan base
that's a
with
nice way to put it.
with the defense that he tried to implement to this football team. And I asked Ninings the same thing yesterday on his opinion on it. So knowing that he has these, that he is interviewing for these head coaching vacancies and assessing what he's done with the defense this year. Um, where are you in terms of like the evaluation of what he's done, and is it ultimately his fault for how bad the defense has played? Did he suffer from a Jim Schwartz type of syndrome where he was very limited on what he can do schematically based on the talent level of the players he had, or is it a combination of both? Like how did you see it? How did you see it from your perspective, going from Jim Schwartz to Jonathan Gannon?
Yeah, well, I'll say this: on Sundays from 1 to 4 p.m. usually, it was always all on Gannon, in my perspective. Outside of that, I was a little more rational. But look, I think it's definitely a combination of both because, very similar to Mike Zimmer's defense. Difference with Mike Zimmer's defense is they're able to play two safeties or two safeties deep and still get stops in the run game, whereas
Yeah,
our safeties weren't exactly the best fit for that this year. So that's why I always begged for Jonathan Gannon to bring an extra guy down in the box. I'm like, I know this is your philosophy, but you got to adjust to the personnel you have. So
yeah.
that's why I say it's a little bit of both because one, you got to know your personnel. Like I feel like Jannard Avery was a little misused early in the season. I liked his role in the back half of the season where he would just come in on blitzes every once in a while. I thought he got some pressure and got home a couple times. I was very
Bernard
impressed.
Avery, Josh Sweat,
Josh
Ryan
Sweat.
Kerrigan, Patrick Johnson.
Yeah.
Too long of a list.
Yeah, like Ryan Kerrigan should have been used as a stand-up guy, although I'm not sure that would have changed results. But Patrick Johnson, yeah, that was a failed signing and a half. But maybe it would have. I don't know. Pat Johnson, another guy like I like Pat Johnson. I thought
And these are rookies too. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
some of
correct.
them are
Yeah,
rookies too.
absolutely. I hope next year we get to see him a little bit as a stand-up rusher because I think he can do that and do it very well.
Yeah.
But look, credit to Gannon in the front office for getting Eric Wilson off the team when they realized one, he wasn't playing well, and when two, they realized TJ Edwards was fully ready to take on that Mike linebacker role. Same thing with Davion Taylor. When they realized Davion was probably going to be a better option than Singleton, they put Davion in there. Unfortunately, he got hurt and missed the rest of the season, but I thought Davion was starting to turn the corner a little bit.
He was. He
You know,
was. His play recognition substantially got better
Oh yeah.
over the course of the season. It did.
Absolutely. And I honestly think another credit to that is just TJ communicating too. I think he does a really good job of that, being in the middle of the defense, the heart of the defense. Maddox, we finally moved into the slot, like everyone said, and look what happened. He had a much better year. So look, I'll say this. If Gannon is here next year, you need to get him, kind of that like general linebacker, like a Darius Leonard or something. I'm not saying they got to bring in Darius Leonard, but like I
Eric
think
Kendricks, Anthony Barr.
exactly exactly. We're going back to Minnesota. Exactly. So, but like you look in the draft. There's gonna be. I think someone said it best. I forget who I saw on Twitter said it, but while the draft is kind of being talked about as not a great draft because there's not like a ton of superstar impact players, but there's a lot of like good mid-tier first round players, which plays into where we are in the draft. So you can get, and that's where a lot of linebackers are supposed to fall. There's like 2 or 3 guys around our range who are supposed to be really, really good. And
Dallas wanting Nakobe Dean to pair with Jabril Cox. Oh, no, please don't let that happen.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you. That would be a nightmare, especially if Dan Quinn stays. That'll be an
nightmare. I wanted Jabril Cox bad too, man. It was
a lot of us did. I remember you were very high on him though. But look, I mean, I think if you get him like that real general linebacker, and you get him, I hate to say, I love Rodney, but I think it might be his time to go. You get a couple back there. I wasn't too impressed with Anthony Harris. I think Epps impressed me. He played a little bit better this year. I don't think he's a starting safety. I think he's a third safety. But I think if you can get 2 safeties there, get a general linebacker, and then maybe get a little more help in pass rush. Even like corner, I wouldn't be opposed to taking a corner in the first round either. I think that's something for down the road you're going to need a future corner. So I think, but most importantly for Gannon's defense, I think getting safeties, a linebacker, and then maybe a pass rusher or 2. Maybe we'll get a little better of an idea of what his defense would really look like. But at the same time, here's what I'll say. Now I'm going to berate him. I mean, you see these guys getting these free releases off the line in that Bucs game. I know you don't have the personnel, but you can at least play zone and reroute these guys, like when they're at the line of scrimmage. Like I just didn't like that I saw these guys who were uncovered pre-snap, and I was like, Brady's going to go right to them.
Of all people to scheme that way against, Tom Brady, of all people, you did the same thing to Justin Herbert, and he had over 80% completion percentage on you. Why?
Yeah, and I think that was the thing is, look, we played who was in front of us, and there's nothing we can do about that. And I'm glad we did because we made the playoffs. that was awesome. But
what did I tell you is in the call-in that I was afraid of? I said the same thing. I thought that Gannon was going to be conservative because he knows what he's dealing with. That it's going to be a bend don't break style of defense, and try to keep it short because he knows that Brady's going to get the football out quick, just like last year when we got destroyed by Big Ben and the Pittsburgh Steelers because they did the same thing. I was afraid it was going to happen, and lo and behold, because we didn't do our homework. Same thing occurred all over again from week 6.
Yeah, that's a good point about the Steelers game too. Oh, when Nathan Gary was back there. Oh my goodness. But that was
resurrect the nightmare.
Chase Claypool went for 200 yards that game. My goodness. At least Jim Schwartz had some redeeming qualities though. No offense to Gannon. But I will say this about Gannon. Look, obviously he is very well respected in the coaching community. That is very, I mean, he wouldn't be getting these coaching interviews if he wasn't. And I have to give him some credit for that because I think teams imagine if he gets better personnel, he'll be a better coach. And I think mostly they have talked about him as a good motivator. Obviously, I don't really know what that looks like because he's the DC here, but I imagine he's a good motivator. And if he brings the same energy he did when Milton Williams got drafted, I'm sure those guys are getting fired up in the huddle for him. So, and that's the thing. Like we saw Brandon Staley go to the Chargers this year. Great defensive play caller with the Rams, but the in-game decision-making was not exactly there.
Nope.
Some of these coaches, it might just not be about just their defensive play calling. They might believe, all right, this guy's going to be able to make good decisions in game. He's going to be able to manage all 53 guys, not just one side of the ball, and he's going to connect with them, and he's going to be able to bring in the right coaching staff. That's another thing. Like this coaching staff that we have does have connections around the league. Whereas no offense to Doug and his staff, but it felt like when Doug came in, this guy last coached at the Christian high school or whatever it was. And then, I know he didn't go straight from that in the NFL, but then he kind of started working. He raised an assistant, worked his way up the ladder. And look, he did know guys from the Reed tree and stuff, but Sirianni and Gannon have been around a little longer. They've coached on. I think it's valuable. Sirianni was in San Diego. He was in Indianapolis. He was even in Kansas City in his early days and was the quarterback coach for Matt Castle when he had his best season, next to the one he had in New England too. But then you have Gannon, who spent time in Minnesota too. These guys have been around a little bit. They have connections. It's nice to have connections to a couple different trees. So I think that plays into it as well. And I would give credit for Gannon he is obviously a strong candidate for some of these jobs, namely the Texans job, that he's even getting interviews right now. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think there's pros and cons to the way with Gannon. I'm prepared to go in with him as the DC next year. But if the same crap happens again, where it's 80% completion and we have better personnel, yeah, he can leave. So
Yeah, well, phew, that'd be doomsday because something bad is happening. Like something is
right,
not getting something is not registering to the players, or your scheme just flat out stinks. It's going
yeah,
to be one or the other. But yeah, it feels like it's a two things can be true mentality where
sure,
where these front office groups in the NFL are like, well, yeah, well, he may not be good at this, but we feel that he could be a better fit for this position, and it more suits his kind of style as a person, where he can carry out this kind of responsibility a little bit better than engaging in something else that makes him feel uncomfortable. And I think that's what's happening now with Gannon, in ways of these in ways of these head coaching interviews. But
yeah,
well, while we're still on the topic of defense, and being that the time crunch is getting it's getting a little closer and closer and closer. We're almost there. We're almost there to the end because well, Philly Insider Podcast has got another presentation right after this. So be sure, if you want to hear more of Hunter Doyle over on his channel with the rest of the PIP crew, give his link a quick click. You won't be disappointed. Much like the rest of the Eagles content creator community that takes this very seriously, and we love what we do. Just another, like I said, just another individual that's just as the same as a lot of us that come on here and take time out of our short days of our lives, and just to talk about just to talk about a sport that some of us dream to play in, but we also love to cover it. So yeah, give Philly Insider Podcast some attention as well. You will not be disappointed.
thank you.
To close out, Hunter, being that we're sticking with the defense here, as I'm trying to close out a window that got in my way of something that I wanted to read. We know that we know with the rest of the head coach terminations that have occurred, whether it was Mike Zimmer, Vic Fangio, Matt Nagy, some of those guys have pretty good defensive backgrounds that are going to be looking for a reset button to try and get themselves back to the top, and like maybe a second chance at a head coaching candidacy if it's not available immediately, and they might have to take a lesser role, to get back into the flow of it, to open some organizations' eyes for them to maybe receive a second chance. So with that, we also got news of an actual defensive coordinator parting ways with an organization, and it's not a head coach, but it is a defensive coordinator, and we don't know what kind of role that he is going to be looking for. But what we do know is that he is a well-respected defensive coordinator that could very well make a positive splash if he is considered for the job, if Jonathan Gannon gets a if Jonathan Gannon gets a new job. It was posted by the Baltimore Ravens today that Coach John Harbaugh and defensive coordinator Don Martindale are parting ways. So, with that bombshell also entering the group of individuals that might entice the Eagles fan base in wanting a new defensive coordinator, as a more clear-cut favorite to get behind. What do you think? What is your take on the Ravens? First of all, letting go of a long tenured DC in this league that was respected for quite some time, especially having vaunted defenses from the Baltimore Ravens. And do you think that he is a legitimate candidate, possibly, if Jonathan Gannon leaves, that this is a guy the Eagles should be interested in?
Yeah, look, I mean, with Martindale, I know I'm gonna upset some Ravens fans here. I think he's a good defensive coordinator. I know their defense got a little banged up this year, and I know yes, it can be annoying seeing cover zero on fourth down sometimes. I mean that can get frustrating, but at the same time, if it works, you're praising him for it. You're saying, "Oh man, he just knows how to dial up pressure on fourth down and stuff." So if he comes to Philadelphia, you're going to get almost the exact opposite of Gannon in terms of sending pressure. And then we're going to get the Eagles fans coming out saying, man, you guys are stupid. Like now he's giving up all these big plays and everything. So, there's going to be pros and cons of the fan base. But look, I think he's a well-respected coordinator. I think we have the personnel to send pressure. Look, Maddox can come off the edge from time to time. He likes to blitz defensive backs from what I understand. We have a couple guys from the linebacker position. Like I'd love to see Davion Taylor just shooting down the A-gap like a heat seeker.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then you got, like we talked about, we have Patrick Johnson, we have Jannard Avery, who can be used as kind of those tweener guys in terms of defensive ends, linebackers. And, I know Jannard's more of a linebacker now, but, I think Martindale will kind of use those guys as tweeners, and I think he would find ways to get pressure home. And honestly, I think we had the at least the cornerbacks to do that this past year, in terms of just letting them sit in coverage. I know Nelson wasn't the best in the world, but I thought he was serviceable. He didn't have any massive mistakes like our cornerbacks in previous years have had. So I respect him for that. Yeah, you're shaking your head because we're remembering some of the names right now that have played cornerback in this football team.
Nikel Roby-Coleman was not in his way anymore.
Oh my god!
Yep, there it is.
It's crazy. He comes off a great year with the Rams, being another great nickel corner, and then he comes to Philadelphia and he can't find a job again after that year. Unbelievable. Our luck, man. But it's just like Byron Maxwell.
That was Schwartz's fault too.
Yeah.
That was Schwartz's fault. Yep.
Just like Byron Maxwell when we had him, and then that didn't pan out either. But anyway though, look, I think Martindale's a good candidate. I also love Vic Fangio. He's very well respected as a defensive play caller. Didn't work out in Denver. The last couple coaches. I mean, look what happened to Vance Joseph. Didn't work out in Denver as the head coach. Now he is a well-respected D coordinator in Arizona.
Would you be afraid of the formation change though, from a 43 to a 34?
Yeah, that's a good question. Not too much, just because I feel like the Eagles switched between it so often this year. Like there were some snaps.
I think they've done it before a couple of times, even when Chip Kelly was back.
That's correct.
Here.
Because Barwin started out as an outside linebacker listed for him, and I think he switched at the end. That's how I remember it from my childhood.
Yeah. It would have to come down to if we even have the personnel to be capable of making that kind of change again. But again, that's going to be another year where this team is going to have to learn a brand new defense.
Right, and that's why they brought in Wilson and Harris, because they wanted a couple guys who had at least kind of understand what Gann was trying to do. And I think that's another thing. Like Zimmer is on the market. I know there's kind of varying opinions on him, but if you do bring him in, I think he knows a lot about defense. I think he suffered from some bad personnel the past couple of years, especially on the back end of that defense. But that's
injuries.
If you bring in Zimmer, obviously maybe a little bit terminology that's different. Maybe it is a little bit different in terms of what he's going to call. But there will be at least some sense of continuity there, which I think we can kind of lean on. So I would appreciate that if we were able to bring him in. But like you said, look, the Cowboys, if Dan Quinn goes, that's going to be 3 different defensive schemes in 3 different years for them. That's tough. Yeah. That's tough as a defensive player, especially they have some young guys there. I mean, Micah Parsons, I have no doubt, no matter what he's doing, he's going to be fine. But
he's that group.
Yeah, yeah. But
oh my goodness.
Look, I mean, I think, like you said, continuity is important. We came into this year, the last time we talked last year in the offseason, you and me, we talked about pretty much the main thing I think we were talking about when we went through each position was evaluating the young guys. And that's what we did this year. And now we kind of have a grasp on what they can be. And I don't know if you want to mess with that too much scheme-wise. Like you said, I think continuity is more important than people realize. So that's what I'll leave it at.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we finally get the chance to evaluate some of the young players, and we talked about, almost that, if not that entire draft class last year, actually got to have some quality snaps in this season. And you have to, you can chalk it up automatically that we're off to a better start in that regard. And in the injecting of youth to this football team, but
Right.
you have to keep you have to keep those tracks going, and you can't change directions at the snap of a finger, and
Right.
just keep it going. And I think we have the outside of maybe outside of Gannon and some other people, but we'll leave that for another day. But
Right.
I do think we have the coaching staff in place, to keep us on a positive note and seeing what these players are capable of going into year 2 or year 3. But with
Absolutely.
that, I know, the time crunch has come officially here. I'm pretty much, I think, right at the limit to what, to what you wanted to go towards. Because, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, he's got another program that's about to go on over on his channel that I believe starts at 8:30. So he's gonna have to hop off of here as quickly as possible to get the necessary preparations going. Meet up with his PIP crew,
Yes,
whoever
sir.
he's doing the stream with and whatnot. So with that, it will officially conclude episode 6 of Touchdown Talk, one of 3 episodes that aired this week that I was grateful to be able to put on my channel and give you guys some entertainment. And I'm just as grateful for the special guest contributors to come on and talk some Eagles football with me, as we all love to do. And in this case, with it being long overdue, Hunter, we did a hell of a job today, and I hope we have shed some light in terms of different perspectives for people
Yeah.
to maybe look a little bit deeper under the microscope about. I think we did an awesome job today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for having me on, Lindy. Let's get you on my channel soon. Mock draft season will be starting up soon. I still got to look into more of the draft guys, but that
Yeah.
was something fun we did do last year. And I'm excited to get into that. But thank you again for having me on, Lindy. It was an absolute blast. And I'm looking forward to the next time we do it. Hopefully sooner than the gap we had from the last time to this time. I think it will.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think it helps that I'm a little more comfortable in my craft and and better in my element now. I wasn't as
love it.
there was less nervousness and stuttering and I
Right.
knew how to transition from one topic to the next. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Takes time.
It's already been almost a year. It's crazy how time flies when you have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you again, Lindy. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, and goes both ways, no doubt. And like I said, y'all, that concludes it. Once the presentation closes out, you can just go right over to your channel, and you don't have to worry about waiting backstage or nothing. Like I know some people do to try and get those last 5 minute conversations in. Just to congratulate each other. It's no big deal, man. I know.
Hey, thank you
But
for your
yep.
blessing.
Yeah, but thank you to everybody that has tuned in for episode 6 of Touchdown Talk with myself, Lindy Endzone, and Hunter Doyle coming in with with some of the best knowledge on the game and the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philly Insider podcast. And to close it out, fly Eagles fly, bleed green, go Mavs, MFFLs. Take care of yourselves, everyone. Stay safe. Have a good night, and I will see you next time.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.